At 2:46 on a Thursday morning, my mother turned my mountain lodge into a free holiday resort for 23 people. She didn't ask me. She didn't warn me. She simply announced it. My phone buzzed so violently against the bedside table that I woke believing something had happened at the hospital. I was an emergency department physician, and calls at that hour rarely brought good news. For 3 disoriented seconds, I imagined a mass casualty alert, a critically ill patient, or a colleague begging me to cover a shift. Instead, I saw 47 unread messages in the Whitmore family group chat. The first came from my mother, Elaine. "Wonderful news, everyone. The family reunion is confirmed for next weekend at Maya's Mountain Lodge, Thursday through Monday. Bring warm clothes and swimming things for the hot tub." My stepfather, Raymond, immediately added, "Plenty of room for everyone. No need to book hotels." My younger sister, Chloe, followed with 3 champagne emojis. Then came a message from my mother addressed directly to me. "Maya, please make sure all 6 bedrooms are ready. We'll need clean sheets, extra blankets, groceries for 4 breakfasts, and enough meat for Saturday's barbecue. Uncle Peter cannot eat onions, and Aunt Louise needs a ground floor room." Not one person asked whether I agreed. They were already discussing sleeping arrangements. My cousin wanted to bring 2 dogs. An aunt planned to arrive a day early. Someone volunteered my study for 3 teenagers. Chloe claimed the main bedroom because, according to her, she and her boyfriend needed privacy. The main bedroom, my bedroom, at 2:46 in the morning. 23 people were dividing a property I had purchased with 12 years of savings. The lodge stood outside Asheville, North Carolina, on 6 wooded acres overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. I had paid $638,000 for it 18 months earlier. Every dollar of the down payment came from years of overnight shifts, holiday rotations, canceled vacations, and the kind of exhaustion that made my hands shake when I finally sat down. My mother contributed nothing. Raymond contributed nothing. Chloe contributed nothing. No family member had co-signed the mortgage, paid a repair bill, bought a piece of furniture, or even helped me unload the moving truck. Yet they spoke about the lodge as though it had been purchased for their convenience. I read the entire thread twice. Usually, I would have started composing explanations. I had work. The septic system could not accommodate that many guests. The insurance policy had restrictions. The driveway only held 8 cars. The house was not child-proof. I would have written paragraphs because my family had trained me to believe that a boundary became legitimate only after I defended it successfully in court. That morning, I did something different. I typed 1 sentence. "The lodge is not available, and no one has permission to stay here." Then I turned my phone face down. I expected anger to arrive like thunder. Instead, I felt calm, not happiness. Not relief, clarity. My name is Dr. Maya Whitmore. I was 38 years old when my family tried to take possession of my home, and until that weekend, I had spent most of my life being described as distant, rigid, and overly independent. Those words usually came from people who depended heavily on my money. My mother had a gift for turning commands into acts of love. She called intrusion closeness, financial pressure helping family, and public humiliation keeping everyone accountable. Raymond believed that being the oldest man in the room made him the owner of every decision. He wasn't my biological father, but he had married my mother when I was 11 and spent the next 27 years insisting that respect meant obedience. Chloe was 32 and had been experiencing a temporary crisis since she was 19. Her crises changed, but the solution remained the same. I paid. When she dropped out of college, I covered 3 months of rent. When she wrecked her car, I paid the insurance excess. When her online boutique failed, I gave her $8,000 to protect her credit. When she wanted a destination wedding and her engagement ended before the invitations were printed, I absorbed the non-refundable deposits because my mother said Chloe was emotionally fragile. No one ever asked whether I was tired. Competent people are often punished with more responsibility. My family had turned my reliability into a public utility. The lodge was supposed to be the one place beyond their reach. I had discovered it accidentally after finishing a brutal series of winter shifts. I drove into the mountains with no plan beyond finding somewhere quiet enough that I could stop hearing monitors in my sleep. The real estate listing showed a cedar-sided house with a stone chimney, a wide porch, and windows facing layers of blue mountains. The interior needed work. The roof leaked above the laundry room. Half the deck boards were soft. The plumbing complained whenever anyone showered upstairs, but the first time I stood in the empty living room, snow was falling beyond the windows. The silence felt protective rather than lonely. I made an offer that afternoon. On closing day, the agent handed me 2 brass keys tied with a green ribbon. I stood on the porch after everyone left and cried into my gloves. It wasn't because I owned something expensive. It was because the door belonged to me. No one could enter by declaring an emergency. No one could volunteer my time. No one could rearrange my life while telling me to be grateful. At least, that was what I believed. The first warning came 4 months after I moved in. My mother started asking strangely specific questions. How many people could sleep comfortably? Were there cameras? Did the hot tub stay heated year-round? Could a motorhome park beside the barn? Did my homeowner's insurance cover guests? I answered cautiously. Why are you asking? She laughed. A mother is allowed to be curious about her daughter's home. 2 weeks later, my neighbor Jonas Reed called while I was at the hospital. Jonas was a retired park ranger who lived half a mile down the road and noticed everything that moved through the valley. There's a young woman walking around your property, he said. Dark SUV. Blonde hair. She tried the mudroom door. I opened the security app. At the time, I had only one camera facing the driveway. Chloe was standing beside my house with her boyfriend, Mason. She held a key in one hand and pulled repeatedly at the door with the other. I called her. What are you doing at my house? She didn't even sound embarrassed. Mom said we could look around. Mom does not own the house. She said there was an emergency key. That key is for medical emergencies involving me. Maya, calm down. We're not robbing you. You tried to enter without permission. Her tone sharpened. You make everything sound criminal. My mother called 5 minutes later. Your sister only wanted to show Mason the view. She tried to unlock my door. She is family. That doesn't answer the issue. Do you hear yourself? You're talking as if she's some stranger. I asked for the emergency key to be returned. My mother said she couldn't find it. That was the moment I should have understood. Instead, I changed the mudroom lock and convinced myself the problem was solved. It wasn't. By 3:15 that Thursday morning, my refusal had awakened the entire family. Raymond replied first. This is already arranged. People have requested leave from work. I wrote, they should change their plans. My mother responded, do not humiliate me after I have invited everyone. I replied, you invited them to property you do not own. Chloe sent, you barely use that giant place. Why buy 6 bedrooms if you're going to be selfish? I stared at the message. I worked 3 or 4 consecutive days at the hospital, then spent most of my time at the lodge. I used it constantly, but even if I visited once a year, it would still be mine. Raymond wrote, we raised you. Stop behaving like you achieved everything alone. I typed my answer slowly. My name is the only name on the deed and mortgage. No one else has authority to offer the property to guests. My mother called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Her message lasted 4 minutes. She cried, accused, pleaded, and threatened in a single uninterrupted performance. She said Aunt Louise had already purchased airline tickets. She said Uncle Peter's health was poor, and this might be his last family gathering. She said Chloe had experienced a difficult year. She said the relatives believed I had personally offered to host. That final sentence mattered. I played it again. The relatives believe you offered to host. My mother had not merely assumed I would surrender. She had lied in my name. At 7:30 that morning, after completing my shift, I called Rachel Kim, an attorney whose office handled real estate disputes and protective orders. Rachel had treated her own boundaries like structural engineering long before I learned how. I sent her screenshots, voicemail recordings, the deed, insurance documents, and the footage of Chloe trying the door. She called me an hour later. Do not debate them, she said. Give clear written notice. Save every reply. People who rely on confusion become careless when you force them to use precise language. What if they come anyway? Then we prepare for that. I posted one final message in the family chat. For clarity, I have not invited anyone to my home. No person has permission to enter the lodge, remain on the property, use the driveway, or access the house between Thursday and Monday. Anyone who arrives after receiving this notice will be asked to leave. Law enforcement will be contacted if necessary. My mother replied, you would call the police on your own family. I answered, I will contact law enforcement regarding anyone who refuses to leave my property. She wrote, you have become heartless. I responded, this is formal notice. Then I stopped answering. Rachel sent cease and desist notices by email and certified mail. She also advised me to inform local law enforcement before the weekend. The deputy at the non-emergency line listened carefully. "Do you expect violence?" he asked. "I don't know. I expect 23 people who were told they could use my home. Do any of them have keys? My mother has a key she claims she lost." He paused. "We'll create an incident note for the address." Next, I called a locksmith named Omar Velez. He replaced every exterior lock, including the detached garage, the utility room, and the basement entrance. He installed coded smart locks, upgraded the alarm, and added cameras covering the porch, driveway, rear deck, and side path. When I told him why, he shook his head. "Old keys are like old promises," he said. "People keep using them long after they've lost the right." I remembered that sentence. While preparing the house, I began creating a different record. For years, my family insisted that I owed them because they had raised me. So I listed the money I had given them since completing medical school: Chloe's rent, $5,400, boutique investment, $8,000, car repair, $3,700, mother's dental work, $6,200, Raymond's tax bill, $4,900, family vacation deposit, $2,600, appliances, medical bills, utility emergencies, and smaller temporary loans. $13,850. The total was $44,650. I had received $1,000 back. My family would have called that generosity. But generosity requires choice. Much of that money had been extracted through panic, shame, and carefully timed emergencies. Rachel told me the list might not have much legal value if the payments had been gifts. "It has value to you," she added. "Manipulation survives by making every event seem isolated." A record reveals the pattern. The reunion was scheduled to begin the following Thursday. I took 3 days off work. The morning arrived bright and cold. Mist sat low between the ridges, and the trees moved gently in the wind. From the porch, everything looked peaceful. At 10:18, a black pickup turned into my driveway. I didn't recognize it. 2 men got out. One was broad, with a gray beard and a scar across his chin. The other wore a leather jacket despite the morning sunshine. They carried no luggage. The bearded man approached the porch and knocked hard. I spoke through the doorbell camera. "Can I help you?" "We're looking for Chloe Whitmore. She doesn't live here. She said she'd be here today. This is private property. You need to leave." The second man glanced toward the garage. "We drove a long way. I didn't invite you." The bearded man leaned closer to the camera. "She told us the cabin belonged to the family." "It does not." He stepped back, but neither man returned to the truck. I called the sheriff's department. "2 unknown men are refusing to leave my driveway," I said. "They were sent by relatives who have already received formal notice that they may not enter." A dispatcher told me deputies were on their way. At 10:41, the family convoy appeared. First came Raymond's SUV, then my mother's sedan, Chloe's car, 2 rental vans, Uncle Peter's motorhome, and 4 other vehicles. They rolled up the driveway carrying coolers, suitcases, folding chairs, grocery bags, inflatable mattresses, and enough alcohol to stock a bar. Children jumped out before the engine stopped. Someone released 2 dogs. Aunt Louise began directing people toward the side yard as if she had been appointed event coordinator. I opened the front door but kept the storm door locked. "You need to leave," I said. My mother marched up the steps. "Maya, stop this performance. Everyone is exhausted. No one has permission to be here." Raymond shoved past her and grabbed the handle. The door did not open. He rattled it twice. "Unlock this." "No." He stared at me through the glass. "I am not asking. That is the problem." My mother reached into her handbag. When her hand emerged, she was holding the emergency key she had claimed to have lost. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she inserted it into the lock. It didn't turn. She tried again. Harder, as if force could restore ownership. I watched her face change when she realized I had changed the lock. "You lied about losing that key," I said. Her eyes darted toward the people behind her. "This isn't the time. It became the time when you tried to use it." Chloe pushed through the crowd wearing sunglasses and an expensive cream coat I had helped her buy. "Enough," she snapped. People took leave from work. "Open the door." Behind her, the 2 strange men stepped away from their truck. I looked at Chloe. "Who are they?" Her expression flickered. "No one." The bearded man laughed without humor. "That's interesting." Raymond turned around. "Who invited you?" The man pointed at Chloe. She did. Chloe removed her sunglasses. "I told you not to come until tonight." My mother stared at her. "What is he talking about?" Before Chloe could answer, two sheriff's vehicles entered the driveway. Deputy Marcus Hale got out of the first. His partner moved toward the crowd and asked everyone to remain where they were. Deputy Hale approached the porch. "Who is the legal owner?" "I am," I said. Raymond answered at the same time. "She's our daughter." Deputy Hale looked at him. That was not my question. I handed the deputy a folder containing my identification, a copy of the deed, Rachel's notices, screenshots of the family conversation, proof of certified delivery, and the earlier security footage. He read quietly. My mother kept interrupting. "This is a misunderstanding. We are not burglars. She invited us and changed her mind." At that, I showed him her written announcement and my immediate refusal. He looked at my mother. "Mrs. Whitmore, your daughter clearly denied permission several times. She is emotional." "No," I said. "I am the property owner." Deputy Hale returned the documents to me and addressed the group. "Ms. Whitmore is the sole owner. She has asked everyone to leave. You must remove yourselves, your vehicles, your animals, and your belongings from the property." Uncle Peter raised his hand as if he were attending a town meeting. "We came from Florida." The deputy nodded. "You'll need to arrange other accommodation." Aunt Louise said, "But we're family. Family status does not grant property rights." Raymond stepped closer. "I helped raise her." Deputy Hale remained expressionless. "She owns the property. She wouldn't have that career without us. She owns the property. We were told we could stay, not by the owner." My mother began crying, not quiet tears, full-bodied sobs designed for an audience. "I cannot believe my own child would do this to me." Deputy Hale turned to me. "Would you formal trespass warnings issued?" The driveway became silent. 23 relatives watched me as if the next word would define my character forever. In the past, that pressure would have worked. I would have imagined every Christmas dinner, every rumor, every accusation. I would have sacrificed my safety to prevent other people from feeling embarrassed by what they had done. But my mother still held the stolen key. The strangers were still blocking my driveway. My sister was still pretending not to know them. "Yes," I said, "issue formal warnings." My mother's sobbing stopped instantly. Chloe swore under her breath. That was when the bearded man spoke. "Before we leave, I want to know what happens to our money." Deputy Hale looked at him. "What money?" The man pointed at Chloe. "She owes us $32,000. My mother's face went blank. Chloe began shaking her head. "That is not what we agreed." The second man pulled a folded document from his jacket. "She promised repayment after the family property was refinanced." I felt something inside me become very still. "What family property?" I asked. Neither man answered immediately. I stepped onto the porch. "What property did Chloe promise you?" The bearded man looked at the lodge. "This place." My relatives turned toward Chloe. She lifted both hands. I said the family had equity here. I never said my name was on the deed. "You said your sister was holding it temporarily," the man replied. "You said your parents helped buy it and could force a sale." My mother grabbed Chloe's arm. "What did you borrow $32,000 for?" Chloe pulled away. "It was a business investment." The bearded man laughed again. "It was sports betting." Aunt Louise gasped. Raymond's face darkened. Chloe looked at me, and for the first time that morning, the arrogance disappeared. "Maya, I can explain. You used my house as security for a gambling debt. I didn't legally use it as collateral. You sent debt collectors to my home." "They are not debt collectors." The man with the scar said, "We collect debts." Deputy Hale immediately moved between them and Chloe. He asked both men for identification and instructed his partner to separate them from the family. Chloe began speaking quickly. She had been placing bets through an unlicensed online operation. She had won at first, borrowed more, lost, and then promised repayment after what she called the Whitmore Mountain property was refinanced. When the men demanded proof, she told them the entire family would be gathering at the lodge and that Raymond would arrange payment. Raymond stared at her. "You told them I would pay? You always say family solves things together." He looked as though he had been slapped with his own philosophy. My mother turned toward me. "We didn't know any of this. You still came after I refused. This changes everything." "No," I said. "It explains more. It does not change what you did." Formal warnings took almost an hour. Relatives loaded suitcases back into trunks. Children were called away from the trees. The dogs were recaptured. Coolers slammed shut. People who had arrived expecting a holiday left with legal documents bearing their names. Some avoided looking at me, others stared openly, as if I had betrayed them by proving they were trespassing. Aunt Louise remained near the end of the driveway after most vehicles had gone. Finally, she approached me. "Did Elaine tell you that you offered to host?" "No. She told everyone you were excited. She said you'd been lonely since moving out here." "I never said that." Aunt Louise's mouth tightened. "There's something else." I waited. "For years, your mother said you stopped visiting your grandfather because he refused to lend you money." My chest constricted. My maternal grandfather, Henry Lawson, had died 3 years earlier. During the last 18 months of his life, he stopped answering my calls. Birthday cards were returned. A care package I sent vanished. My mother told me his memory was failing and that he became distressed whenever anyone mentioned me. "What money?" I asked. "She said you wanted $50,000 for medical school debt. She said Henry refused and you told him he was dead to you." "I never asked him for money." Aunt Louise studied my face. "I believe you." She opened her phone and showed me a photograph of an envelope. My name was written across it in my grandfather's uneven handwriting. The envelope bore a postal stamp from 4 years earlier and a red marking, "Return to sender." "I found this while clearing a cabinet at his house," she said. "Your mother told us you refused every letter he sent." I could barely breathe. My address was correct. I know. On the back of the envelope, someone had written "no contact" in blue ink. The handwriting belonged to my mother. The driveway emptied before sunset. Deputy Hale remained until the strangers and the last family vehicle had gone. Before leaving, he advised me to change alarm codes, online passwords, mailbox access, and any emergency contacts connected to my family. I thanked him and locked the door. The lodge was silent again. But silence after an attempted invasion feels different. Every room seemed to contain an invisible version of what might have happened. My mother in the kitchen giving orders, Raymond occupying the porch, Chloe sleeping in my bed while men waited for money outside. I walked from room to room until I reached the study. There, my phone displayed a message from my cousin Beth. "I think you should see what they planned." She attached a document my mother had sent privately to several relatives. The title was "Maya's Hosting Responsibilities." Below it was a schedule: Wednesday evening, prepare casseroles and desserts; Thursday morning, place fresh linens in all bedrooms. Give main bedroom to Chloe and Mason, Maya to sleep in the small room beside the laundry area. Do not mention Chloe's financial situation. Do not discuss ownership of the lodge. Keep alcohol stocked, have hot tub cleaned before guests arrive. Maya should avoid talking about work because it makes others feel inferior. No unnecessary rules, no dramatic behavior. At the bottom, my mother had written, "She may resist at first, but Raymond will handle her." I read the line twice, then I laughed. It wasn't because anything was funny. The laugh came from the absurdity of seeing an entire alternate reality written in bullet points. In that reality, I prepared meals, surrendered my bedroom, concealed my sister's debts, avoided discussing my own career, and obeyed Raymond inside a house I owned. I was not their host. I was their unpaid staff. Rachel moved quickly the following week. She sent expanded cease and desist notices to my mother, Raymond, and Chloe. She demanded that they preserve all messages relating to the lodge, the false claims of ownership, and Chloe's representations to the two men. She also warned them that further attempts to enter the property would lead to immediate legal action. My mother called the letters an attack on the family. Raymond left a voicemail. "You have made everyone afraid to speak to you." I saved it without responding. Chloe sent 14 messages. Some blamed gambling addiction, some blamed Mason. Some blamed our mother for creating unrealistic expectations. The last said, "You don't know what it's like to owe dangerous people." I answered once, "You made my address part of your debt. You knew exactly where the danger would go." She didn't respond. A few days later, Beth came to see me. She brought screenshots from years of private conversations. My mother had carefully built a version of me that justified everything she demanded. Maya has no maternal instinct. Maya cares more about money than people. Maya thinks being a doctor makes her superior. Maya abandoned Granddad when he refused to finance her lifestyle. Only invite Maya if she is contributing. Otherwise, she creates tension. One message was sent after I paid for my mother's dental surgery. "Don't thank her too much. She likes feeling important." I stared at it until the words blurred. Beth sat across from me at the kitchen table. "I believed some of this," she admitted. "I thought you stayed away because you didn't care. I stayed away because every gathering ended with someone asking me for money. I'm sorry." She looked as though she expected me to comfort her. I didn't. "Thank you for telling me," I said. An apology can be real without erasing its consequences. Two months, Aunt Louise mailed me my grandfather's letter. The envelope had never been opened. I sat beside the stone fireplace while rain struck the windows. My old Labrador, Finch, rested his head against my foot. The letter was short. My dear Maya, I do not know whether this will reach you. Your mother says you want no contact, but I cannot make myself believe it. I was told you asked me for money and became angry when I refused. I do not remember such a conversation. What I remember is a girl who brought library books to my hospital room and stayed after everyone else became bored. I remember you calling me during medical school because you were frightened you would fail. I remember telling you that courage is not confidence. Courage is continuing when confidence has gone home. Something in this family has become confused. Messages do not arrive. Words are repeated that do not sound like you. If I have believed lies about you, I am sorry. You were never unloving. You were always carrying too much. If protecting your peace requires a locked door, lock it. A person who loves you will knock. A person who only wants access will complain about the key. Love always, Granddad. I lowered the letter and cried for the time we had lost. Nothing could return those final years. But his words corrected the story. I was not cold. I had been carrying too much. After that, my boundaries became simple. Raymond received no contact. He had spent years treating my adulthood as a rebellion against his authority. I no longer needed him to understand why he had lost access. My mother was allowed one meeting each month in a public cafe, no visits to the lodge, no keys. No messages through relatives. During our first meeting, she cried for 19 minutes. I miss my daughter, she said. You miss the version of me who surrendered. That's cruel. It's accurate. She stared into her coffee. Then she asked whether we could meet at the lodge next time because cafes felt impersonal. No, you aren't even considering it. I considered it before I answered. Chloe entered a treatment program after the men threatened legal action. Raymond paid part of her debt by refinancing his own house. 6 months later, she called me from a recovery center. I'm not asking for money, she said immediately. Good. I wanted to admit what I did. I waited. I told them the lodge was basically mine because Mom always said everything in the family would eventually be shared. I thought if they came during the reunion, you would pay just to make them leave. The honesty hurt more than an excuse. You used my fear as a repayment plan. Yes. And you let 23 relatives arrive so I would feel outnumbered. Yes, her voice broke. I am sorry, I did not forgive her that day. But I stayed on the phone. Trust is not repaired by one emotional conversation. It is repaired by a pattern that continues after the emotion has passed. Over the following year, Chloe stopped asking for rescue. She sent proof of counseling appointments, repayment receipts, and recovery milestones. When she reached 11 months without gambling, she asked whether she could visit the lodge. I said not yet. There was a long pause, then she answered, I understand. That response earned more trust than any apology had. Around the same time, I met Daniel Reyes, a flight paramedic who understood that calm was not the absence of feeling. On our 4th date, he asked where I went when I wanted to escape the city. I have a place in the mountains, I said. He smiled. It sounds beautiful. I tensed without meaning to Daniel noticed. We don't have to go there, he said. You're not offended? Why would I be? Most people hear hesitation as rejection. Hesitation is information, he replied. You're allowed to decide what it means before I do. Months later, when I invited him to the lodge, he arrived carrying groceries and stopped at the edge of the porch. Should I take off my shoes? It was such a small question that I nearly cried. He noticed the cameras but didn't ask me to justify them. He saw the reinforced locks and didn't joke about paranoia. He stood at the window looking over the mountains and said, "This place feels safe." It took a lot of work to make it feel that way. He nodded. I believe you. A year after the attempted reunion, I hosted dinner at the lodge. This time, everyone was invited me. Rachel brought apple pie. Omar, the locksmith, came with his husband. Jonas brought firewood. Beth arrived early, helped prepare vegetables, and did not ask me to reassure her that everything had been forgiven. Aunt Louise brought my grandfather's old pocket watch. Daniel cooked steaks on the deck while Finch slept beside the fire. Chloe did not attend, she asked. I told her I wasn't ready. She said she understood. Near sunset, a black bear appeared at the far edge of the trees. It remained there for a moment, silent and watchful, before disappearing into the forest. We ate at the long wooden table. No one claimed my bedroom. No one demanded a key. No one gave me a list of responsibilities. Every guest entered because I opened the door, and when the evening ended, everyone left without treating the invitation as permanent ownership. People sometimes ask whether I regret involving law enforcement. What they usually mean is whether I regret embarrassing my mother. I regret many things. I regret ignoring the first warning when Chloe tried the mudroom door. I regret allowing my mother to call the emergency key lost when I knew she was lying. I regret believing that better explanations would create respect in people who benefited from misunderstanding me. I regret the years stolen between my grandfather and me. But I do not regret calling the sheriff. I do not regret changing the locks. I do not regret using the word trespassing. Words matter. An announcement is not permission. A family plan is not a legal agreement. A stolen key does not create a right. Blood does not transfer ownership, and a woman is not selfish because she refuses to become a hotel, a bank, a debt guarantee, and an emergency exit for everyone else's choices. My refusal did not destroy my family. It exposed the structure that already existed, a structure in which I was welcome when I paid, admired when I solved problems, and condemned when I required respect. I no longer live inside that structure. I live here. This morning, fog covered the mountains. Finch slept beside the fireplace while Daniel made coffee. My mother sent a message asking whether our next cafe meeting could happen at the lodge. "Public places feel so cold," she wrote. I replied. "Saturday at 11 remains available at the cafe." She sent several typing dots, then nothing. That is progress. Raymond sent a Thanksgiving invitation through Beth. I did not answer. That is also progress. Chloe has been free from gambling for 16 months. She works at a rehabilitation center and sends me updates instead of emergencies. We speak occasionally, carefully. She has not asked about visiting the lodge again. My grandfather's letter is framed beside the front door. The sentence I see every time I leave is the same one that greets me when I return. A person who loves you will knock. A person who only wants access will complain about the key. For years, I believed love meant leaving every door open. I believed good daughters answered at any hour, paid every debt, solved every crisis, surrendered every room, and smiled while doing it. Now I understand that a boundary is not the opposite of love. It is the entrance through which healthy love arrives. Some people will stand outside that entrance and call you cold because the door no longer opens at their command. Let them. The fireplace is burning. The table is full. The people inside were invited. The lodge is warm, and the key belongs to me.